This is TW Wrestling Talk here. And in the words of John Cena, you can't see me. Uh, yes, in case you've been watching, this is obviously a different edition of TW Wrestling Talk, being that I'm doing this without camera. Figured I'd give it a try without the camera. It gives me a little more freedom. And I've been, I live kind of in the Philadelphia neck of the woods in the U.S. So I listen to a lot of Philly sports radio, and so and I just seem to like the flow of how that go, of how sports radio is around here. So for the time being, I'm gonna try it kind of more like a radio. It does have its advantages. It had I can do things kind of without distracting the viewer, such as take a sip of water or whatnot. So without it appearing awkward. So without same concept, but you know different kind of appearance here, obviously. Um, so without further ado, let's proceed with TW Wrestling Talk. This first edition here in edition in December. Um, this edition, it's I don't this past week's Raw, rather interesting in that it was I don't it's hard to explain, but it was it was a little strange. Some very good things I think, and some things that I really did not like about the show. Um, just what's the direction that WWE is taking as with some things as we near tables, ladders, and chairs. Um, this normally I kind of discuss I kind of answer a few questions that float around in the WWE. For this edition of TW Wrestling Talk, instead I'm gonna kind of kind of talk about the good and the bad of Raw this past week, particularly Raw. But what's going on with WWE in general? Um, you know, we'll start off with some good. Um, I was talking about in the recent weeks on this program how the mid carders, well, some of them, guys like the Miz and Wade Barrett, haven't been used properly as of late, and that I didn't like the direction they were going with them. Um, but if you watch Raw, the Miz was very prominent on this episode of Raw. Um, and I'm just gonna say pretty much every segment that involved the Shield, who I think they have potential. And if you kind of notice, they kind of took place of the three-man band. If you notice, as of late, they kind of just disappeared off the map. Um, but the basically every segment that had to do with that involved the Shield, Team Hell No, CM Punk, and The Miz, all of those segments were good. Well, in some cases, great. Um, and I applaud WWE for using Miz, probably the best they've used him in a long time. I applaud WWE. We gotta give him a hand for for using Miz. Given in two promo situations that were both big deals. I was impressed with what they came up with, what they had Miz do. and him and CM Punk showed potential for a great feud down the road. That's what that's what they got to do. Those kind of segments is what they got to do with the Miz. That promo with him and CM Punk was great, and of course the segment later on, his well at least his role in it, he did a great job. Him and CM Punk, you got to hand it to those guys. They, for the most part, they were responsible. They had the most to do with the good parts of Raw. This week. Um, and I mean, like I said, the Miz, he showed great potential. It's almost as if they tuned into last week's edition of TW Wrestling Talk, and and took my advice. I mean, they went from a pretty pathetic Miz TV segment on SmackDown the week before, to this week, to not only having that promo earlier on, but having a great Miz TV segment with the lie detector test concept. Um, I mean, the bottom line is WWE knew what they were doing, um, with both of those segments. Um, and I mean, like I was, later on as we discover, the Shield was hiding right there. The Shield was a big part of the show. Several times attacking, whoever it be. Team Hell No, Randy Orton at the end. They were they were hiding right there at the ring. With the way everything was set up, they attack. They just started to get dishing out one more big attack on the Miz, and then of course Team Hell No came out. Kind of back out to get some revenge. And then, of course, you had to think, without a doubt, Ryback had to come out, as he hadn't been part of the show at all up until the very last minutes, um, of the show. And, the way they had, yeah, I mean, they just had great brawling going on, um, in and around the ring. Uh, and then Ryback, of course, gets a hold on CM Punk, nails the shell shock, um, you know, grabs a table, a ladder and a chair, not in that order, and dishes out punishment to CM Punk, and eventually puts CM Punk through a table, with a power bomb, and the crowd was just going crazy. They were electric for Ryback. They hadn't seen Ryback do something like this to someone, put him through a table and just kind of decimate him with, you know, the weapons that we're see them being, have him play at tables, ladders, and chairs. So, the crowd was behind him more than ever. Um, they were into this segment. I was into this segment. And it was one of the best closings, um, to Raw in a long time. I mean, this whole segment had everything. Um, it had, a refreshed Miz, um, in there having, you know some great exchanges of words with CM Punk, as they had earlier in the night. They had this, whole lie detector thing going. They had the Shield, a new stable, hiding right there and dishing out punishment right before, we discuss right before CM Punk can give gives an answer to you know the big question, um, that we never got the answer for. Of course, unpredictability, and of course, Team Hell No coming back out, Ryback coming out, dishing out punishment. This was one heck of a segment. Um, all these guys, you know, Kane, Daniel Bryan, they weren't as prominent of figures on the show, but they did what they they played their part well. The Shield, of course, they're looking like a legitimate faction. They're playing their role well. CM Punk, Paul Heyman, as always, and of course the Miz, um, really really scoring tonight, really looking good, sounding good, um, and after what the Miz did tonight, I don't see how you can't utilize this guy more in the future. That how you can't utilize him in the main event picture more in the future. Um, so I'm gonna be looking for that because he on the mic, his character direction tonight obviously wasn't a match, but those other elements, um, he was on top of his game and was great. And then of course Ryback doing his destruction, um, kind of making up for being on the receiving end of attacks the past couple weeks. Um, really good stuff. That was all of that was basically the good of Raw. Those segments involving those guys. So that's that was basically the good. Um, if you go to the next part of this edition of TW Wrestling Talk, we will get into some of what I saw as being the bad. So stay tuned for that for the next part of TW Wrestling Talk of this edition.